Hello, and welcome to the Elevate Entrepreneur, where we decode the success of some of the greatest entrepreneurs that I've met, that I know, that I trust. These individuals have not only built their business up, but they've also impacted lives for the better. Here you will learn not only how to grow your business, but also inspire you to want to be just a little bit better. I'm your host, Raylan Davis. My entire intention is to remove obstacles and excuses as to why people can't realize they deserve more. With that being said, let's jump into this week's episode. Stay motivated, stay elevated. All right, so my guest today, we're in for a treat today. So Andre Young is a speaker, he's an author, and equally importantly, he's a leadership coach. And for those who listen to the podcast, I've been really, Andre, obsessed with leadership lately. I'll explain why in a second. Also, you have a background in therapy, which I'd actually want to get to a little bit as well. So first and foremost, man, welcome to the Elevated Podcast. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And you guys listening, thanks for letting us steal some of your time as well.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so first thing on leadership. The reason why I've been obsessed with it lately is I mentioned before we started that I had this background in corporate where I managed 120 employees, which was crazy, by the way, because I was like 25. And Andre had no fucking clue what I was doing. I'm just being honest. Zero idea. I winged it and it was fine. In my defense, though, 40 of them I like co-managed because they worked at a call center. It was a little bit easier. It's more so that was when I first got my apprenticeship in coaching, I should say. So anyway, fast forward, I now run a team of 6, and actually we're going to be increasing it to several more. And I'm having to relearn, Andre, how to lead. I forgot. It's so interesting how that muscle you don't use anymore. And one of the biggest problems has been trying to find my voice as a leader. I forgot what my voice is, because it's also this weird thing of I deal with a lot of creatives, a lot of freelancers. They're not my employees. So it's kind of interesting. So again, I find it interesting that I find you to come to the podcast. I'm like, oh, it's happened to be exactly what I need. So first thing I want to ask you is, talk to me a little bit about what you do for companies and helping them with their leadership and kind of your direction and what do you think a good leader even is?
Oh, wow. Well,
it's a loaded question, I know.
What I'd really like to say, we are living the same space because I was an employee, then I was elevated to positions of leadership, didn't know what the heck I was doing. You had 120, I had a team of 4, still didn't know what I was doing. And we all learned how to manage before we know how to lead. And then I had I had 12 employees. And now I outsource 6 of the most awesome elite professionals. However, as creative as they are, your leadership matters. So what I do for organizations is all enhancing leadership and work-life harmony from C-suite down the front line. So I do, whether it's speaking engagements, conferences, or I do my bigger Evolve and Lead training program. But what I've learned from being an entrepreneur, and any entrepreneur out there listening, what you do doesn't matter if it doesn't fit the deepest need of who you're serving. So my thing, when I get on the call, I say, what is it that you want to get out of bringing someone like me in? Now I can match it to what I have, customize, create, or refer. And that's what I do. So it's all about enhancing that leadership and work-life harmony, and not only for C-suite and middle management, because they'll get all of the world's best training.
Yeah.
And then they're scared to go to the training because their daggone inbox and email keeps filling up, the fires they come back to. So by the time they go to implement it with the 20% that they hopefully remember, that no one else knows that they got, they're doing it with tired eyes. They're doing it tired. And then when they don't get the reaction that they want from their people, then they stop.
Yeah.
So I love being able to book in an organization with their leaders and their front line. So that's the honor of what I get to do for a living, and to do it in so many different ways and for so many different types of companies. It's been really cool.
So then you come in and do this workshop teaching leadership, but then you stay around for a little bit, I would imagine, to help execute?
Yes and no. So the minimum I stay around is a one-off. So coming in one time, whether it's for an hour or 3 hours. But I always warn companies, listen, you have leaders, you have people, they may not be the leader to themselves that you think they bullyword should be. Okay? So this runs the risk of simply being entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay? So to get past that, I had built the Evolve and Lead training program. So I'll come in and I'll do 5 sessions with leadership, 5 sessions with frontline. You could do cohorts, as many cohorts as you like, right? And then I understood that not everybody's going to have the budget for that. And for me, you got to know who you are. I don't want, nor do I think it's best for me to be living in your company.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I don't want to feel like an employee again. And number two, just like when I was a therapist, I am not looking for you to be my client for a lifetime. If I have done my job and you are willing to do yours, then I shouldn't be there the whole time.
And I was liking too, like the more you're in a company, you're going to start thinking like them. And that,
well, you start losing your voice. You start losing your voice. Now, the reason I'm not saying many things that leadership hasn't said, I'm a new voice saying it in a different way.
Yeah.
And the longer I stay, the more my voice will drown out and I'll become one of them. And that's not helpful to an organization or to my business. So what I did was, because, well, now that you leave, whether you're there 1 time or 15 times, well, now what? So I created an online program that can be put in onboarding processes. It re-ups every year. It has a cohort for C-suite and middle management, for frontline, but it also has a leader's library. And that has shorter lunch and learn, so people can sit down for 20 minutes instead of this hour or 2-hour thing. And they can say, this is what we're going through. Boom. And they can watch it individually or as a team. And I'm always there, but I'm not there.
Yeah, Andre, I love that because I get so many companies. Like I was a part of, I guess I still am. There's an app, gamified onboarding for students in higher education. A little bit different. But the reason we did it, though, and what was brilliant about the company is they brought on these content creators like me that were young and actually had something to say, instead of the normal onboarding process, which is usually this cut and paste, boring, like had the same music kind of, you know what I mean? Like they were so bad. So I think it's smart to have someone like you have that library they can go to at all times. That makes perfect sense.
Well, thank you. It was tedious to make. I mean, you made content. Anybody that creates content, the amount of content and work it took. I mean, I'm so proud of it. And it really is cool that companies can get that because their people win. They already like you. Hopefully you did a great job. So why wouldn't they want more of you? Now they're enthused to sit down for a lunch and learn instead of, oh, what's this going to be? This is going to be dumb. This is going to be stupid. So it really creates a win-win for everyone.
So then walk me through, you mentioned it briefly, but what's the idea of work-life balance? Because my opinion of it has changed probably the same as you when I became an entrepreneur, because what I'm fortunate enough to do, which not everyone's in that position, but my life is my work. I love what I do. Like I can do this in my sleep. So I purposely have created offers or services that we do that I love, because why not do that, right? Like why would I want to work with someone I don't want to work with? But so in the workplace though, like, does work-life balance exist? Like, is that a thing? Because again, I mean, it was a long time ago that I was in corporate, but even then, the whole leave your life outside the doors never fucking worked. Wasn't real.
It's a farce. Raylan, it's a farce. Guys listening, you want to stress yourself out quicker than anything or anybody else on the planet. Go attempt to get perfect work-life balance. It's a lie. The fact, first off, as soon as cell phones came out, that whole leave home at home before you walk into work was obsolete. Now, through a text, your husband, your wife, your kids, your life, your drama, good and bad, is all ringing and dinging in your phone all day long. So that whole leave home at home is crazy. And then at work, people come home from work, and the phone might not stop ringing, dinging, and chiming with emails and work stuff, and you go to pick it up, you have now given the green light that this is the expectation. So, not to mention with remote and hybrid work, our roles as a worker, as a human, as a mom, as a dad, as whatever we are now more blended together than it's ever been in history.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe in work-life balance because it's assuming that everything needs to be balanced in your life and put in these nice little equal buckets. As if you could get that, it would stay that way. And it also assumes that everyone in your life needs the same amount of thing from you anyway. And that's not true. So I believe in work-life harmony. Leaders create a great marriage. They marry what they want to do and give with what the person or people receiving your effort need most from you right now. So I don't worry about balance because I like to spend more time. My love language is quality time. My wife's love language is words of affirmation. So where I might want to spend 2 hours with the woman, she needs a 30-second text. It's not balance.
Bro, I think we're the same people. Like,
right. So we tend to. Those types tend to. So it's creating harmony. I know what each person in my life, from my clients to my wife to my kids. I have 4 kids. They all need different things. Once you know what they need and who they are, you can marry one. Get just a little bit outside your comfort zone. It all works itself out and creates harmony.
Yeah, you need a trophy, by the way. I have 1, and that feels like I'm learning every day. He's only 4, but still. So with the at home thing though, how much has leadership changed because people are at home? Because again, I told you before we started recording, me managing people that are not, I have people that are not in the United States, for example.
Yeah.
Like I've had to learn how to use like asymmetric, oh my God, I can't even talk. Okay. Anyway, I don't know how the word is. But anyway, I have to record videos for them. So that way when they wake up, they hear what I need to say. That's been weird. So like, how has the corporate world kind of evolved to this hybrid model, and how does leadership kind of play a role in that? Because I would imagine it's really different.
Well, the thing is, pre-COVID, the things that I was saying about work-life harmony, the things that I was saying about leadership, leaders, we have to do a better job connecting, okay? To be a better influence, to be a better impact, protecting our people. All of these things were important pre-COVID. However, they became way more important after COVID. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to know more about how to connect and have emotional intelligence and care for yourself and your people, right? With the homework and hybrid work, as leaders, we must be able to connect like rock stars with our people. If you're not going to see them in the hallway, because pre-COVID, or if you're in a building with someone, you can be a certain type of leader. No, there's 5 different types. You can be any type of leader you are. But you have these gaps of time at work, whether it's chit chat at the water cooler, in the elevator, walking the hall, randomly bumping into someone for lunch. So you can create a connection and they'll forgive some of your poor leadership, maybe. But without that, there's no forgiveness. And they can swipe left and get another job in an employee's market really quick. How do you get them to move forward on the vision to be of impact? And it all comes down to connection. So when I brought on people that I outsource with that I'll never see, because I too have people that are out of the country. I have people across the United States. We work so fantastic, but we'll never shake hands. Yeah. So a couple things is I like to know this. I call it the interview questions, the leader's interview questions. And then I have a special meeting I'll share. Number 1, I want to know, hey, what do you like most about the job that you do? What do you like the least? What frustrates you the most? That's an important question. What frustrates you the most from the job you love? And why? And you got to add and be honest.
Yeah, the answer for my people would be me. I'm the biggest person. I changed my mind.
I've had people that I've hired that said, not knowing what a boss wants from me. Most people want to do a good job. Some want to do a great job. They just want to know what the job is.
Yeah.
And when we're not clear and when we're not communicating and we don't have the connection, it makes it very hard. I also want to know your dream. This is so important. Because if you're not going to see this person every day, especially when you're not going to see this person every day, so important that you know their dream. And one of the questions I say is, what's your dream? And if it's related to what we're doing, great. If it's not related to this job, great. What is it? And I'm going to show you how this plays out. my assistant, world's best assistant, Nicole, if you're listening to this, hello. So she says she wants to have her own business. She wants to have her own virtual assistant business and help people around the world. I said, great. So I brought her on, I outsourced. The company she was working for was taking 50% of the money.
Yeah.
So she said, well, can you hire me as an employee? And I said, no. And she said, well, why? And I said, because you told me your dream was to have your own business. So I am going to put you through my program and teach you business. And now she has her own business and is servicing people worldwide. And I am one of her clients. I want to treat her so good that she can find another thing. She can be successful in her business, but she never wants to leave me.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to know what your 7 languages are. So I came up with the 7 years ago, and I teach it worldwide. And it's the 7 professional languages your people need, want, and benefit most hearing from leadership. So I, as a leader, we as leaders, have to be able to speak all 7. However, each one of your people have a top 1 or 2, especially if I don't see you as more important than I speak your language. So maybe they're goodie time and they like treats. Maybe they're quality minutes and they need a few minutes of conversation that doesn't have to do with work. Maybe they're recognition and affirmation and need that pat on the back. Maybe they're knowledge and or advancement. They want more knowledge or they want to advance. Incentives, flexibility, or respect. So now I know your top 2 and I ask it every year. Boom, I can just speak your language over emails and Slack and all of that stuff. And you feel welcomed, wanted, seen, connected with, even though we're 6,000 miles away. And lastly, I want to know how you learn best. Are you auditory, visual, hands-on, or written? Usually there's a combination of top 2. So if I'm not going to see you, I want to know how you learn so I don't frustrate myself.
Yeah.
So doing that allows you to pick a person, know a person, but then you got to have your one-on-one meetings, especially virtually. So I want to have a meeting with you once a month, and I want to say, hey, what's been going good since we've seen each other last? Start with the positive. What do you want to get out of our meeting here today? My people have grown my business tremendously because they'll say, oh, I was thinking this. Guess what? I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. So, sounds like a great idea, as long as it's within our vision and vision factors. Great. Then we mesh goals. The meeting's not an accident. I called it.
Yeah.
So what do I want to get from this person and need from this person? What do we want to focus on? Then what's the plan? And then you always now ask them, what was your biggest takeaway from the meeting? Whatever they say is more real and more important to them than whatever you say. And they get to get off that call feeling like they got something special, because that's what they said.
I think
so from a remote standpoint, those 2 things were huge.
Yeah, I love that. And the next thing I kind of want to get into as well around leadership is the idea of self-leadership. How important, like how much do you spend with like the leaders you work with and on the idea of self-leadership? Because I think one of the things that this is a long time ago, but I had to kind of learn as a leader now, but even then, that showing through example is like the best way to lead. And like, especially with my team now, I'm a little weird because a lot of my people that work with me now have their own business. And so my rules are like, you need to be growing your business as you're working with me. Like, are you reading every day? Are you are you implementing every day? Are you being impeccable with your word? Like, these are like things that but also if I don't do it though, right? That's where the self-leadership comes in. So how important, especially with your background in being a therapist, like how important is that in the conversation of leadership?
It's the most important place to start. I will tell you that in my bigger program, or even if I speak for an hour, the first 15 minutes, I jump into the 5 points of the day. I talk about bully language and what to replace it with. I talk about the formulas to work through burnout and vacations. And the reason we start there is because you always start with work-life harmony, because that's personal leadership. That's personal leadership. How you choose to show up to your life, your work, and your relationships says a lot. And you want to show up in the way that people want to follow you. So that also yields connection. So I always start there. And then we can slide into leadership, because once you start talking about that, everybody goes like this. Everybody starts nodding their head because they know it's important, and they'll take away from it what they want to apply to their life. But you have to start there. The reason I don't say it's everything, and the reason I say that is because at the end of the day, your leadership will come down to your results. My son plays quarterback. He could do all of the great personal leadership in the world, but if you ain't winning freaking games, guess what? You're going to be cut.
Yeah.
So it's a great starting point, but it's not the whole thing, okay? So you got to be able to do great personal leadership first, then great leadership skills to effectively run a team. But all of that has to lead to results. So it is a 3-part system, but how do you do it? So huge to start with.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that on social media, every other Sunday, I post pictures of my life. So whether it's me taking my daughter out shopping, or going to one of my son's games, or having a drink at a cigar bar by myself, or a date night with my wife, every time I post that, I yield the biggest numbers and the most likes of any content that I put out on leadership. And people tell me that they love it is because they like that it makes you real.
Yeah.
But it also inspires them to not waste their days, not waste their lives. So it is so important to do that personal part of leadership, because otherwise, what's it all worth?
Well, I think
that would assume that people who are, just because you're wealthy or have a title, everybody's happy and living the life that they want, and we all know that that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also I think that's why I like social media, just being the idea of sharing your trials and tribulations. I'm hesitant to say the word vulnerability, because I think people misconstrue vulnerability with just bitching and complaining. It's not the same to me. Like, if you go online and you go, man, my life is so hard because I don't want to hear that. Like, you're just looking for sympathy. However, what I really love is when people share their vulnerabilities or their trials and tribulations from a scar rather than a wound. A friend of mine said that once, and it stuck with me, and it's so true. It's like, I posted this a while ago, but the trouble that I had with finding balance with, some with my time with my son, for example, right? Like, that is something I'm never going to get perfect, and sometimes a pendulum swing. But I talked about it from a place of, hey, this is what I'm doing now about it, and I really I don't know, it's a pet peeve of mine. People do it, and I'm like, God, it doesn't make sense. But I did want to ask you though too about your. I want to kind of backtrack a bit. Tell me about your start, because the thing I love about doing these podcasts is because people, when I first met my first consultant was at my old company, and he was the first person that I got inspired to be a consultant and then eventually a coach. And walking me through his start made it real, meaning I was like, oh, I could get to that level. Like, granted, like the level when I met him, he was working with people like Gucci and Lexus and Pepsi, and he's doing deals. No, he didn't. But like but again, like I was so young, and I didn't understand that, oh, there's a starting place, and he was making $2,000 a pop here and there, and he thought that was awesome. So walk me through your journey of becoming this amazing leadership executive coach.
It's really funny, guys, because I joke, but it's not a joke. I didn't want to do this. I never thought of this. Like, I actually did not want to speak or write at all. I didn't. So when I first started it, it was because I was coming out of a divorce, and I had met my wife, then my now wife, was my girlfriend at the time. And I was really struggling. I mean, although I had a title, I was a leader at work, but coming out of that divorce, I was mentally fried, financially just buried. Like, it was just a bad time. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror. I said, look, I didn't do everything right, but I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
And I said, a lot of people fail, especially in relationships, because they had nowhere good to go and no one good to do it with. So I'm shopping at the discount grocery store, and I bump into a friend that was going through a divorce. And I said, look, I'm going to get some guys together, and the whole point is for them to come and go home to their lives and relationships better. So yeah, I was already a therapist at the time. I wanted to create questions, and I wanted to be like the hair club president and the member. So I had these guys in my house, started with friends, then some strangers, and then it got weird to have strangers in your house. So we started renting space other places. And all I wanted to do, Raylan, was sit down, ask questions, and be a part of the conversation. As it went on, I started to stand up to make my point and then sit back down. And then I realized how people were responding to me standing up. And then at some point, I never sat back down. However, the business was so different. Like I said, it was, we had a men's division, a women's division, a youth division. And as impactful as it wasn't successful enough to feed my family because of how the business was. I can't compete with someone, a man or woman, getting off work and them giving me their money once a month to come to a meeting at 7:00 at night. And so it became all about how many butts were in the seat instead of the content that was given. So I said, well, where are people? They're at work, they're at school, and they're on their phones. So that's where I need to be. Mm-hmm. So I went to businesses and I said, listen, this is what I want to do. Now, this is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So all of this personal growth and relationship growth and work-life harmony, they can't say it out loud because it sounds rude, but they said, well, this is nice, but what does it do for us?
Yeah, of course.
And I remember sitting in that meeting and was like, you want leadership. But I don't talk about leadership. And I went home that night and I looked at my videos and my writings and I said, oh my goodness, I'm already talking about leadership. I just never said the word.
Yeah.
That day, I started adding the word leadership to my content, and then, boom, it started to take off. And then I had to push the snowball up the hill.
Yeah, of course.
So I started, some small businesses in the area. Hey, I like to do this. It's subscription-based. I'll do it for your people for free. If they like it, they can sign up for it.
And then, so you went in to the place and was like, yo, who was the leader here? Who was the CEO? Who was the manager, whatever? And you talked to those people directly. And that's how you got your first few clients?
Yep, because I was doing the old school, when you first start your business, the community networking where you're shaking hands and the 30-second commercials. So I knew some people that had small businesses. So I would go and say, listen, I want to do this for your people. It's not going to cost you anything. Everybody starts with free work. But if they like it, it's like a subscription that they can do on their own. So they are, of course, great. Now, I learned two things. I would go in, and one, I learned that people loved what I had to say. Two, I learned that if the company wasn't paying for their subscription, they weren't going to do it. Because you're talking to people that haven't done anything typically about life for themselves or professional or leadership. And then all of a sudden they're going to start that. So I learned that they liked it, but the company had to pay for it. So then I started saying to the company, listen, what do you want to get out of bringing someone like me in? And I stopped leading with my menu, and I started leading and learning from their needs. And now I can match it to what I have because, hey, this is what it sounds like you need. And then it also allowed me starting to customize and create things that I wasn't even thinking about. Mm-hmm. And then it just kept snowballing until what it is today. But, thank you for those first small businesses and me putting together speaking engagements when I set up 80 chairs and 3 people came.
Well, that's why I love asking, I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of coaching consultants come on here. I love asking that question because one, there's so many people that I know that listen to this that are online entrepreneurs and they don't know what it's like cold calling somebody or walking into a business and saying, hey, I think I can help you. And so it's funny because even me at one point, it's almost, Andre, like I forgot that there's people in Arizona that could use my services. I just forget because all of my, businesses that I work with are not here except for like one. That's it. And so anyway, I love hearing from other people about like how they got going. So then what was a social media platform that you really first got involved with that you started to like? Because I mean, for me right now, for example, like YouTube and podcasting is like, to me, the greatest lead generation platform ever. But that's just for me. For some people, it's LinkedIn. So what have you found that works for you?
Mine, I would have to say, is LinkedIn. And the reason is because it's easy. And what I mean by easy is when you go on Facebook, for what I do, it's not for everybody. It's consumable by everyone, but not everyone's going to support my business financially, okay? So if I go on Facebook and I make a post about leadership or put information out, all I know is your name. But on LinkedIn, I can intentionally connect with titles, chief people officers, CHROs, director of human resources. So I know my pool. I can fish in my own pond. So that has been, from a lead generation standpoint, just absolutely phenomenal. Now, here's the risk. So any entrepreneur listening, and I share with my kids, I don't believe in plan B.
Mm-hmm.
However, I fully believe in expanding your plan A. Okay? So I share with my team, listen, LinkedIn is our bread and butter, not to mention doing a great job with wherever you're working, they'll refer you. So referrals and LinkedIn for us works. However, if LinkedIn changes their algorithm tomorrow, which they do from time to time, and all of a sudden LinkedIn shut off tomorrow and we couldn't do that, what else would we do? Whatever the answer is to that, let's start doing. Be sure you, as a leader, are doing a bit of that other thing. So it's not plan B, you're expanding plan A.
Yeah.
And if the main bread and butter thing stops, all you got to do is put extended plan A on steroids.
Yeah.
So email marketing, which I have not delved into because I don't like receiving spam and all of that.
Yeah.
However, a lot of the world must, or it wouldn't be working. So that's
the grading way on it. Now, like you gotta find what works for you. Like email marketing is one of those things that, like, for example, I did because I knew I needed to do it, and I had a newsletter, and luckily I was just doing it, and then just recently, somebody that had been on my newsletter for almost a year and a half finally converted. And then that's what made me think. I was like, if I didn't have this, I don't know if that person would have converted, right? And the cool thing is, and I kind of see this for you, which is similar to my newsletter, and that I have, like, on Tuesday, it's called Tough Love Tuesday. And it's just advice from, like, it actually comes from my YouTube channel, but we just transcribe it and we kind of package it a little bit better for email. But basically, I never pitch in my emails. But in every single email, I have a PS line that says, when you're ready, here are 3 ways we can help you. And that way, it's like, whenever I actually stole this from, his name is Joe Polish. He's an old school marketer. He would hate that I said he's old school, but it's okay. He is. I mean, him and his buddies, like, literally invented the squeeze page, the landing page. Like, they're old school. Anyway, again, I just hope, Joe, if you heard this, like, I'm not calling you old. I love you. Anyway, but that's how he does his, is that he gives value first, always. And then the PS line is just, hey, by the way, like, I don't know if this will help, but I got this thing. And you think they get used to seeing that and they would just forget about it, but they don't. Like, they see it, and then every day, imagine they go, oh, I'm going to click today, maybe tomorrow. And then you just, every week, you stay patient and they convert. So I like that.
You brought up a great point, and I call it being the chicken. You called it giving value. You give great information away, so via LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever you're on, email marketing, when you give great information away, you've earned the right for that PS statement.
Yeah.
You've earned the right for the sell. And I don't even expect to sell my service. I want to sell a Zoom call. Let's get on a call. Let's get eyeball to eyeball and chat. That goes something from there, then great, let's do something. Because I don't assume I know what you want yet, or if I can help yet. So that was really, really huge. You got to be able to be the chicken, give the value, and I love that PS at the end. So my team is starting up the email marketing. I'm finally saying yes to that because expanding your plan A is huge. Like I feel like my son's a quarterback. I said, you win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, you will still retire younger than I am now.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What else are you interested in that you would do for free because you like it so much? Let's start doing that too. So when football's over, whether it's 20 minutes from now or 20 years from now, it's all a part of plan A.
Yeah, absolutely. So then talk to me about your transition from therapy the consulting? Like what made you decide to kind of leave that behind, and or at least, I won't even say leave it behind. It's more so like you evolved it. But what led to that?
That was a rough transition because I initially thought it was a bad breakup. I initially thought that I would retire from therapy. Whatever I'm in, I'm a nerd about it. Okay, so I'm a nerd about whatever I'm in, and I thought I would retire doing it. But to be very honest, I fell out of love, not with therapy, but how the system takes care of caregivers.
Mm.
So, it was hard to, the paperwork. So you go into therapy. You go into therapy, hopefully, because you enjoy people and walking a journey with them.
Yeah.
Not helping or fixing people. Not fixing people. That's not therapy. Walking a journey with them, providing them what they may need in some tough conversations along the way when necessary, right? However, as the years went on, the paperwork, the emails, and all of the things that were non-therapeutic just kept growing. And now you're asking a person to do 2 or 3 different jobs, and the part that they dislike or their weakest part of what they do is now being, appreciated the most. Not to mention, it was struggling pay-wise and things like that and supporting a family. It was really, really hard. And I had burnt out of a job. I mean, I ran a sex offender unit of men my first year and a half. Then I worked in alternative schools, and, the amount of hands-on things and psych wards, and it just wound up really wearing on me. And although I was right, I tell people all the time, you could be so right about everything you're saying and belly aching about at your job, but you could be so wrong with how often you say it, who you say it to, and how you disconnect from people and your passion. And I did that. I burnt out of a job, and now I get to teach people how to lead through it.
Yeah.
So the last straw really came for me was I had came up with some concepts. Okay? I come up with concepts. I write all the time. I've written 4 books. And I had a speaking engagement. And at that time, I probably was making $2,000 to $3,000 speaking engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go write my concept down in my progress note. Hey, I used this with a client. And my supervisor said, well, you can't write this because it's not evidence-based practice. And I said, well, I just got off a stage for an hour and made $3,000. And for an hour here, I'm making $25 an hour. And I can't write what I used at work. And at that moment, it just made so much sense. Now, the money had to start making sense.
Yeah.
When you're an entrepreneur, just because you made $3,000 this month doesn't mean you're going to make $10,000 every month. Yeah. So once I got once I worked with my first big company, and I signed my first, at that time, this is air quotes if you're listening, big contract.
Yeah.
I knew my bills. I called my wife. I said, listen, I know bill-wise, we could be covered for about 4 or 5 months. If I can't make it, I can't be successful with 4 or 5 months unabated to work on my dream, where all of this company is asking for is 6 hours a week of my skill set, then it wasn't for me. But I knew I wouldn't fail. You give me 4 to 5 months unabated to work on my dream, I knew I wasn't going to fail. So I remember talking to my wife, and I remember hitting that resignation button, and still wasn't sure, like,
yeah,
this is happening, and then never looked back.
Yeah. How'd that feel, though, when you have to make that call?
It was exhilarating, but I'll tell you, fear, let me say, the safety net almost won. So in my mind, I wanted to be practical. Like I said, I had 3 kids at the time, 4th on the way. So I went to my supervisor at the job, and I said, listen, at the time we were working with the most severe population that suffered with schizophrenia in our area. Okay, so we were a special team that we went service.
The emotional, the emotions to that, though, had been also draining as hell. Like, you can't go home feeling great, like you had a great day, and doing something like that, man. It's super, if you're a servant, but still, man, that's serving that take a toll.
It's serving at a high level. I was also on the flight team that responded to school deaths and school shootings, and you have to get out You have to have an exit plan. Anybody that works in direct care, any type of direct care, but especially potentially violent direct care. My goal, if I was a leader in that situation, is you got to get out before you get put out. You got to get out before you burn out. And everybody burns out at a different rate, but you got to beat it. Yeah, you got to beat it. So I went to my supervisor and I said, listen, I know things are intense here and I know you're looking for full time. This is my situation. Because I had walked into the interview process saying, hey, I'm a speaker. I don't plan on being here for long, but I need a job. So they knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But I said, listen, this is the opportunity that I've been offered by this big company, okay, to do my work as a consultant for them. I'd like to stay on part-time for security. And they told me the best no I have ever heard in my life. And I'm telling you, as a leader, you got to be able to give no's because you're saving some people's lives sometimes. And they said, look, well, this is a really intense position. You know that. We need people here are full-time. And I'm like, wow. In my mind, I was initially frustrated. Like, I'm still offering you my services. I think I'm doing pretty good here.
Yeah.
I am beyond excited that they said no, because maybe I would have never left.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have stayed and I would have had, a foot in this door and a foot in that door, and you can't fully commit chasing two rabbits. So, and all of the work, it's not, when you see people think I spend all of my time speaking on stages and flying around. No, it's just like an athlete. You see them on Sunday and you think that's all they do? No, they practice all week long. They do other things all week long to make Sunday look great. So I wouldn't have been able to do all of those things that need to happen to make the game day look so great.
Yeah, no, I think also, because I think back to even when I transitioned, I turned down a job to start. Because I had went through two companies closed down. One I got severance with. The other one closed down because of pandemic. And I said, screw this. Like, I'm going to go for it. But I got offered a job in the meantime that was more than what I was making in corporate. Like, it was like it was like a lot of money. And I turned it down. But I was really fortunate because the person that I talked to was a friend of mine. And I remember, and for those that are hearing this story again, like, sorry, but a buddy of mine goes, Raylan, I'm telling you, because he was a consultant that got brought on as the VP of sales at one point. And he said, Raylan, if I do it all over again, I would have never done it. He said, you could make $60,000 in your business, and that's worth double what you could ever make here because of the freedom. He said, you have to go for it. And so I was like, okay, like that, I needed, like, I was nervous to turn it down, but because he told me that, I was like, all right, I got to go. Now, here's the thing though, like, I wasn't, when people ask me like, hey, when do I leave my job? I always tell people do the opposite of what I did, because I had zero safety net, zero. Like, at one point, I just shared it with the people in my coaching academy that I had like negative $1,600 at one point. My son was like 1.5 at this point, right? So, but for me though, I needed, at the time anyway, I needed that I have to make it. Like, if I would have had a job, I would have never done this.
Absolutely. I remember that, and it was very stressful. I think it was more stressful on my wife, to be honest with you, than me. I knew I wouldn't fail. I just didn't have a time frame. Yeah. But how could she know that? And I tell people all the time, like, there's people in your life that just because they're pointing out what they see doesn't mean that they're hating on you.
Yeah.
Some of them love you and don't want to see you fail. Some of them are really just recounting your results. And right now, they're not many. Some of them love you and want you to be safe. Some of them have been safe or had a dream fail. So a lot of them are loving you. They're not loving you the way you want. And to be an entrepreneur, there will come a time where you're the only one that believes in you. And daggone it, that has to be enough. Yeah. It has to be enough. And I finally got to the point, and I'll say this, and I didn't know if I meant it, what I'm about to say, but I'd rather die than go back.
Yeah.
I'd rather die than go back.
Sometimes I feel like we need that mentality, though. Like, I don't know, I had that mentality of, like, I'd rather, like, I burned all my ships. Like, I was like, yeah. I am an entrepreneur, period. Now, I got super lucky because my fiance, my wife now, she's my wife now, not my fiance anymore. But my wife grew up around entrepreneurs, and her mom works with like one of the biggest mastermind owners in the world. So like she grew up, like her uncles basically are these 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneurs. I got super fortunate in that she understood the journey. She understood that it was not always going to be, we're making money. And when we got to the point, what was really funny was, and I think she knows this inherently, but she's working another job at the time and she couldn't stand it. Like there's a lot of issues with the job. She hated it. I said, come work with me. Like we could do this together. And she kind of went back and forth with it and whatever. But I'm like, she's like the smartest person I know. Like she's been around marketing for her whole, literally, like there's a picture of her at the start of this like marketing company as a 3-year-old, like with the founders of this like she's been in it forever. I'm like I'm fortunate that she didn't know how smart she is because I got her pretty you know what I mean? She luckily she doesn't know. But what I got really fortunate with is, again, she understood that wasn't going to be easy. And so when she came on, Andre, I didn't have money to pay her, but we knew we'd get to that point eventually. And luckily, you know, again, for us, like it worked out, right? Like, but I always tell people that you have to plan for the suffering. It's like it's the barrier to entry. Suffering is to me. Like,
and that's where the lessons are. I believe you can learn from your successes. You better learn from your successes, celebrate them and learn from them. But that's what, you know, the suffering and the time the client pool dries up or something happens or whatever it is, that's when you learn. That's when you start to, and when you overcome that, now that's what you can teach to the person that is going to hire you later, because you've been there and you get the collapsed time frames for them. You're proven. So you got to go through that part. Like I don't say I welcome it all, but dang on it, my business would never evolve without it. Your business will never evolve without it. Well, you got to go through it. You also got to do your money right.
Well, you got to put yourself out there because I see people that have never gone through the type of like hardship that I have in an entrepreneur journey, but they've never elevated either. Like they've stayed, and it's because they don't, like, we took a really big risk this year. I dropped like 30 grand in a workshop. By the way, Andre, I didn't make my money back. I lost at least 15 grand. Now, by the way, my wife told me not to do it. I did it anyway. Learning lesson number one was like, you know, listen to her more. But in order to do now, the next time we do it though, I know for sure we're gonna crush, because there's a bunch of lessons. I don't know what this is. I would have never learned that, Andre, unless I did it. There's just no way you could have told me, Raylan, do that, and I would have been like, yeah, got it, and I wouldn't have done it. Like I just had to experience that.
It's an investment. I remember I made a $40,000 mistake at a job one time. I was in charge of authorizations and making sure that, you know, the clients were getting paid for the worst part of what I do, organization, right? I was doing. And, leadership spoke to me about it, but they also looked at it almost like as a $40,000 investment. I might make another mistake, but it won't be that mistake again, you know? And, when we can start looking at our mistakes or mishaps or things that happen as an investment, how much you learn from that. I remember setting up shop for my first speaking engagement with the 80 chairs and 3K. I remember attempting to start a networking thing. And so many times, and you think back early entrepreneur days, what do we all do? We have some ideas and we throw them all at the wall. And whenever one sticks and makes you a little bit of money, that's what you're going to do. That's what I am. And that's a mistake. But we all do it. But we had to learn from it. Because just because it's stuck and made some money doesn't mean that's who you are or where you're supposed to be going. So, but you only learn it through the failure of it.
Well, that's why a lot of people like you.
And somebody asked me, how can you stay so calm when this just happened? I said, because my feelings don't matter right now. The lesson matters. My feelings don't matter. Why didn't it work? And whatever the answer is, does it mean that I should scrap it, continue it, or evolve it? Those are my options.
Yeah. Well, that's why I also love people like you, is because you're helping people. I love what you talk about, because similar to so what we often talk about is we often go over with entrepreneurs. Let's start with purpose. Start with purpose, because I have I'll just say it. It sounds whatever, but I have a gift of offers. Like I can monetize anything. I can figure out how to make money with anything. So let's figure out what you want to do. Like, what would you do for free? What could you do all day long and you feel like you're serving, you feel like you're doing everything, and then you go to bed every night going, man, I made a difference. Let's do that, and then let me figure out how to make money with it. Because again, like I know somebody, I tell this story a lot, but like if you don't believe you can make money doing anything, I know somebody that made $160,000 on a 3-week or 4-week challenge selling a knitting course. Andre, knitting. Okay. So if she could sell that, okay, like I'm telling you, you can make money doing whatever. Anyway, I know you told me you had to pick up your son. So what are some final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
Oh, man.
I know I put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
Yeah, final.
By the way, we got to get you to get a speaking gig in Arizona so you can come in person, and we'll do another podcast in person. We got to do that.
That would be awesome. I love Arizona, and your show is amazing. So I guess my parting words is, create that marriage. Yeah, I keep talking about it, and I say it more and more. I hear myself say it more and more every day. Marry what you want to do and give with what the person receiving it needs most from you right now. And you can ask them what they want. I call it the get great question. Hey, Raylan, I want to be the best. What is it that you need most from me right now? You do not have to do whatever Raylan says, but you can't complain about what you don't get. And the trick is, whatever Raylan says, I want to do it. When I choose to do it, I want to do it a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but not so much that I wind up hating Raylan's guts or the task. That's the secret. You could do this with your clients. You could do this with your employees, your boss, your coach, your wife, your husband. It always works the same. Let your curiosity breed that connection and just do it a little bit outside of your comfort zone so you don't wind up resentful.
Tell you what, though, I just marked that because guess what? That's going to be on my website. Listen, because I can't tell you how many times I've said this to people, like, you cannot have an excuse and the success. You can't have both. You can only have one. You can, whatever you choose, I'll love you. But just know that you can't have both. So, man, this was tons of fun. Again, I can't wait for you to come to Arizona. We're going to do it in person. It's going to be amazing. I appreciate you, man. And I'll put all your descriptions and everything in the description. People can check you out. You have a new follower of me. I love what you're doing, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to The Elevated Entrepreneur. If you want to check out more about the guest, look at the description below. And as always, if you're a beginner coach or even someone that's seasoned and you're looking to join a community of like-minded individuals, learn about branding, lead generation, sales, you name it, think about applying to the Elevated Coaches Academy. You can learn more about that in the description below. I look forward to having you in the next episode. We'll talk to you soon. Stay motivated, stay elevated.